Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview with She Has Something to Say. I'm Lori Harris, and I am your host. And today I'm very, very honored to be speaking with Robyne Parrish. Robyne is dynamic. You guys are going to love her. She is an American stage and film actress and a graduate of the North Carolina School of Arts. She's best known for her work opposite of Richard Kind and Steve Guttenberg in Help Me, Help You. She has appeared in numerous stage productions in New York City and across the country. She's an executive producer of the short film Vulnerability, and television credits galore. One of them is the Onion News Network and the web series The Baristas, which many of you are familiar with. She's an award-winning actress, playwright, director, as well as a career coach. And I am very honored today to be speaking with Robyne Parrish. Welcome, Robyne. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Robyne, I really want to dig in right away because your bio, your IMDb and your bio is extensive. And I just think it's going to be really dynamic for you to tell your story and your narrative of who you are and how you got there and what inspires you and what motivates you and what connects you to make impacts each and every day.
Oh, wow. Well, yay for the IMDb bio. They did a good job.
Right?
Really great.
Right. So I'm
yeah.
curious, the breadth of your experience is really deep and rich, and both on and off stage, as well as the writing that you do. And I'm curious, how do you keep busy right now during COVID before we dig into that background? So how do you keep busy right now?
Well, that's a great question because as you know, I'm currently in South Carolina visiting my father, my family, but I do reside in Manhattan, New York, or in the Bronx, rather, in the West Bronx. So, we're pretty shut down still in the city, although I think we're sneaking into phase one of opening. But in terms of the industry, we are not, it's all red lights. So there's nothing happening in person. So when this all began, luckily I do have a coaching business, Parrish and Company, which is a private, personal coaching business. I coach actors and I do a lot of it online anyway. So interestingly enough, I was really able to sort of continue to work once we were locked down. And actually things kind of blew up because actors were just sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs, like, what are we gonna do? There were a lot of online virtual auditions that were happening and still happening that people needed to coach for. Suddenly everyone needed new material. Our casting directors in the industry worked really hard to offer the actors some opportunities since they couldn't leave home, particularly in New York and some of the larger cities. And so we actually been quite busy teaching classes and doing private coachings. And so I've been able to really feed my artistic side that way, in addition to, some wonderful artistic directors around the country who have offered me opportunities to do Zoom live readings of plays, the Pittsburgh Public Theater, the Out of the Box in New York. They just did the revival of Baby recently before all of this happened. Companies like that have given me the opportunity to continue to act as well. So that's been really great. So I've been busy and but because my business is very mobile, I was able to kind of pack up after about 70 days in lockdown. I packed my bags and the car and the dogs who are here with me. And we started on a fairly long trip. I mean, it's been over 25 days now. So, but I'm able to continue to work, which is great. As long as I have good internet, I'm good to go.
That's probably very, very true. And what I find interesting about entertainment, about actors, about film, about television, you know, the series that we watch and streaming, all of this entertainment value that's there. Often entertainment we rely upon to soothe and to cope and to distract and to lift us up and to engage. Those narratives and those stories pull us in and suck us in and really give us the opportunity to just dream and be innovative and be in that space and that story and hold that space and hold those interesting characters. So talk about that reliancy in the business and from an actor and director and playwright perspective, how you feed that and how you're able to nurture that and create that value for the client or the customer on the other end.
Well, oh gosh, well, that's a great question. You know, I do a lot of I would call it audition coaching. So actors who come to me, they're auditioning for Law and Order. They've got a side. We work it together. You know, those are some of the more general things that I do. But I also offer a very specific service, which is the monologue acquisition service, which is my favorite. But just for myself, I love it so much because it kind of encompasses all of the things that I do in terms of acting, directing, and coaching. A client will come to me and say, I need monologues that fit me like a glove, because when you walk into an audition room, or if you're making a tape or you're virtually meeting someone, which is what we're doing right now, and they want you to bring something that you love to the table, it has to just be inspiring and feel like it's part of you. And so I really enjoy finding material for my clients, finding monologue material specifically, because it's a casting process. You know, I go and I look at their materials, I look at their website, I look at their reel if they have one, I look at their headshot and resume, I get to know them virtually. I pull the material together for roles that I would cast them in. And then it's like this fun, you know, surprise to see what we found, what the perfect fit is. So that's one of my favorite things. And I really think that the clients appreciate, it's almost hard to call them clients because they're the actors.
Oh, the actors, yes.
They appreciate it so much because we're given material that we kind of have to bend to suit us, or, you know, okay, I'm going to find what there is about me that connects me to this character. There's a lot of homework that we have to do. So it's really lovely, I think, to be given material that's just exactly right for you. It has a lot to do with what the actor's entry point is. How do they present to me in the first 10 seconds of meeting them? And that's really fulfilling for me, to give them a piece of material that they can put in their arsenal, to take with them, to introduce themselves to the industry in the best possible way. It's like finding a song that you just love and inspires you. You don't often get to do that kind of material. And so I hope that answers the question. I find that really inspiring, finding it's like a match, you know, it's like a love match.
So when you act, when you are the actor and you're put in that position to, you know, portray that image and portray that character, what process do you go through? What are some of the things that happen for you when you're given the gift of being able to provide that level of entertainment. What process do you go through?
Well, you know, that's really interesting. It's different every time. When you asked me that question, I flashed to the last two shows that I did. I did two off-Broadway shows back to back.
Uh-huh.
One was called The Giant Hoax with Indie Theater Works at Theater Row, in which it was a musical,
Uh-huh.
and I played a mother, this calm, soothing, warm sort of fairy godmother character almost. It was a kind of a storybook show. And I felt in that musical that I could just sort of step right into the role, and I didn't have to do a lot. Although I'm not a mother of children, of actual humans. I'm a mother of dogs.
Right.
But something about that material felt very much like just putting on a nice comfy sweater. Then juxtapositionally, I did a show called Chasing the River at the Chain Theater in New York City off Broadway, in which I played of a lower income mom who had gone through a lot of abuse with her husband, and there was a lot of family abuse that had gone on for generations, a lot of alcoholism, totally different story.
Right.
And, you know, that one I had to really do a lot of soul searching. I had to go really deep inside. Not to say that I didn't go deep inside for the mom and the musical, but for this one in particular, you know, I really had to do a lot of soul searching and go to those darker places and sort of dredge up a lot of childhood memories, a lot of, you know, stories that I'd heard from other people, and really dig in and find, because this mom that I played, she, her daughter had suffered some abuse at the hand of her father, and the mother did not recognize it. In fact, she completely just, what is the word that I'm looking for? Completely was blind to everything that was going on in the entire time her child was growing up. And that's not necessarily something that I personally would be able to connect with, you know. But you have to find those places within yourself. You know, you have to put yourself in the position of that character and the way that she grew up and how she'd been affected over, you know, the sort of the DNA of this family over generations. So, you know, I get a script, I read it, just like everyone. I read it again. I hope that I have a fantastic director. Almost always I do. And I come with ideas. I bring ideas to the table. You know, we worked a certain way at the School of the Arts in North Carolina. We studied Stanislavski, and we studied ways in which to score our scripts and do character research. I do all of those things still to this day, and it's been 20 years since I was an undergrad. And then I bring those ideas to the table, and I see what happens. You know, in the case of the mom that I was just speaking about in Chasing the River, my ideas weren't really aligned with what the director was thinking, and the writer was also there as well. And it was really it was so challenging. You know, I came in with a lot of ideas of anger for the character, and she sent me in the complete opposite direction than I had personally prepped. So, you know, you do all this prep work and you don't quite know if it's going to work. Particularly in a show like that, where it was a brand new play. We were all the very first performers ever performing the role outside of readings that had been done. So we were developing it together with the playwright and with the director. And so I learned so much. And, you know, there's no perfect way. You come with your ideas and you hope that you have something to offer, you know, and ultimately, obviously, I had something to offer. I played the role.
Right. And it sounds like you build on. So maybe that character, you find little things and it just continues to keep build your resource, your skills, kind of like in corporate world as well. People build.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's dynamic. It's very creative process, very dynamic, very collaborative as well.
Yeah, it has to be collaborative. And the older I get, the more, you know, of course, I realize that there's no recipe. We can study all sorts of, you know, work by these great teachers. We can study all of their systems. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you pull what you like and leave the rest, and you come up with your own system.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I want to discuss with you local and regional theater and how it defines a community and the benefits that it also not only defines the community, but the benefits that it provides a community. And you've done a lot of that work in your resume and your bios. My goodness, you've done a lot. So talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh gosh, which community do I start with? Because it's interesting, you know, I grew up in South Carolina in community theater.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of those same community theaters are still here. I was driving around and passing them and waving, you know, when I was 10 years old, I was on those stages and thinking about the ways in which they defined me and in which they set me on my path, you know, and how important those companies were to me. Town Theater in Columbia, South Carolina, and Lexington Arts Association in Lexington, South Carolina, how important they were to me. And then, you know, I went to art school, and then I went to New York, and I started my own company in New York City called Sonnet Repertory Theater, which focused on the classics. And so our objective was to bring the classics in an accessible way to our audiences, the people of New York. And also to provide opportunities for actors who were just getting out of acting school and needed a place to kind of ground themselves and get a couple credits under their belt. So in that way, we were of service to those guys, as well as bringing, I hope, some great theaters to the community. And then I moved back to North Carolina for about 5 years, where I ran a small community, semi-professional / community theater in Fayetteville, North Carolina, called the Gilbert Theater. And that is how I'm connected to Brian. And there were 2 companies in that town. It's an Army town. There's a base there. One was the Gilbert, which is a 100-seat black box. That's the one I ran. And then we had a much larger regional company down the road called Cape Fear Regional Theater. And, you know, it's really where the community comes together in a way that is revolutionary. You know, people of all ages and socioeconomic areas and, you know, just every kind of family that you can imagine would come together to see these shows and be laughing or crying together in one room. And to me, it's a very spiritual experience. And a very human experience, a place where humans can bond and we can let everything go and just be together. And it makes me a little sad to think about it right now, because we can't do that right now. It's very, it's hard to imagine the world without theater, you know, but it'll be back. We'll be back. And we're still here. We're still here online. It's okay. But You know, in that town in Fayetteville, North Carolina, this smaller black box that I ran was sort of the edgier company. You know, we did stuff that was a little bit more out of the box. You might not see it down the street at the larger regional theater, which was mostly family fare. And so I think, you know, regional companies and community theaters, you know, are they each can offer something different, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. We sort of covered all the bases with those two companies. And then we had a Shakespeare company in town. But I think particularly these larger regional companies that are sort of at the center of their community, like for instance, Virginia Stage Company, where I did Matilda a couple of years ago. It's run by Tom Quaintance, whom I met in North Carolina. You know, they are leaders, and people look to the theater for leadership on how, you know, on how to sort of view the world in a sense. I mean, it's a big deal to put together a season. You know, it's a big deal, and because everybody's watching, and it takes a lot of thought and a lot of it was one of the most exciting things that I got to do at the Gilbert Theater, and one of the things I missed the most is putting those seasons together.
Wow.
And hoping that I was bringing the kind of material, something that would be exciting to everyone, you know.
I've always felt that entertainment definitely can help shape the norms within our
Absolutely.
our societies on a variety of levels, right? Whether
Absolutely.
it's or social or whatever those things are. Talk about high school theater. So not only your experience in high school theater, but also its importance and the role it plays in education overall.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's so important. We had a drama program in my high school, and we, you know, we did annual shows, and I think that it was another wonderful place for community to meet friends, to socialize, as well as learn how to be artists. And of course, for the people who are going to continue on the artistic path, it's a must. But I think in the same way that it sort of opens, well, I guess it's just important that kids get a broader view of the world. And I think the arts in education can bring that to their doorstep. I mean, there are a lot of kids who don't leave their hometowns.
Right.
You know, and they don't have the opportunities to see the world from a broader viewpoint. And without that sort of life experience, I don't know how they can make decisions about things when they become adults without just sort of doing what they grew up learning.
Right.
You know, so if they never leave their community, the one place that they can find some answers maybe is the arts.
Beautiful. I can't agree with you more.
I hope that made sense.
It does. It absolutely does. I think that especially at that high school and junior high level, it does. It opens up those kids' minds to stories beyond what they know, like you're saying. And it is a beautiful process for them to learn a technique and a skill, especially communication.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not an actor. By no means am I speaking from experience or expertise, but I do know both of my children and my family have all been involved in artistic things and in the entertainment industry, and the value it brought because of just even just communication.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing, the talent and the skills that come out of that. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to move on, and I want to kind of shift your gears a little bit and talk about historical theater, including musical theater, and what's your opinions about the identities of those two?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, we have to know where we came from. I think it's incredibly important to know where we came from. If you're talking about the Greeks and Shakespeare and Chekhov, and is this what you're referring to? You say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are the writers that inspired, you know, the guys writing today. I mean, it all started with these great playwrights that have survived. I mean, who knew if only Shakespeare knew that we'd still be doing his plays. But yeah, I think I've always been a huge classic theater gal. I was classically trained at the North Carolina School of the Arts. I started a classic theater company in New York called Sonnet Repertory Theater, and if I could do classic theater every day for the rest of my life, I would be so happy. It's not necessarily where my career has taken me, but I think, but it's definitely one of my great loves. And I think it's incredibly important, not only in education, but also that we include these writers in what we present to the public so that they can experience. I mean, it may be the only chance, you know, that people ever get to hear the word Chekhov or, you know, or Shakespeare or Moliere, or they may never ever hear of these writers or see them again if we don't continue to bring them to the stage.
Yeah. And I think the message too, and the story, the narrative that they deliver is profound.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It applies to this day. Like you were saying, these are thousands, some of them are thousands of years old, and they still apply to today. And
yeah, they just transcend time. And I think a lot of actors, you know, young actors in particular, are so scared of Shakespeare, and even some of the older actors that are getting into it, you know, getting into it in their 30s and 40s are like, oh no, I can't, you know, they don't, it just looks like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, archaic text. And it's exciting when they're able to connect to it, to see them connect to it. And it's just, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it's still here with us. There's a reason why it has lasted the way that it has. And of course, musical theater is going nowhere.
Yeah, right. So I was just going to go into that. So, and musical theater is also different techniques, right? There are different skill sets for that. And so dig into musical theater a little bit, and have you done that? I mean, I noticed you did. So tell us about that, and share with us about the interest of musical theater.
Well, you know, as I said, I was classically trained, but somehow, and we did not have a musical theater track at my undergrad. But somehow I've ended up doing quite a lot of musical theater. And, you know, and that's sort of where I started, because as I said, I started in community theater, and that was mostly musical theater because that was the thing that sold in this particular town. And I always used to compare musical theater as opposed to a straight play, as we say. I always used to compare it. I always said musical theater was like math, like a really hard math problem. such a different animal, you know. You're doing and it's so specific. There's, you know, but what's so much fun is that you put it together so specifically, and then playing within this specific skeleton that you've developed. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but I love the specificity of musical theater. You know, can't get off that beat.
All right, so I want to shift the conversation a little bit, and I want you to dig into some of the things that motivate you and inspired you in your career. What are some of the productions that were formative in your education?
Well, you know, one thing I should say is I consider myself a lifelong student. Lifelong. I'm always somewhere studying something. Mm-hmm. Currently, I'm studying with the Russian Arts Theater in New York City. And even now that we're unable to meet in person, we meet online on Monday evenings. And we have a wonderful teacher, and I have no idea what's going on. I love to have no idea what's going on. I love to be, you know, you can't be the smartest person in the room. You cannot. Right. And so we study Chekhov, we study Michael Chekhov as well. It's just a really great place to study. I have to talk about the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, which was the North Carolina School of the Arts when I was there. Gerald Friedman was the dean of our program. He recently passed away, which we all miss him very much. We lost a couple of really amazing instructors from that school recently. But, you know, Gerald worked really hard, again, to put together seasons for us that we could, you know, really learn and thrive. And some of the plays that I did there, I think, would be the things that would jump out or stick out the most, things that have inspired me along the way. Into the Woods was our senior musical. I really got my first, wasn't the first Shakespeare I'd ever done, but I was able to work with Gerald Friedman on Romeo and Juliet, so that was pretty exciting. We did a play called The Effective Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds, which was an incredible play. These are just a handful of Rough Crossing by Tom Stoppard, which was a play with music, a comedy. This is just a handful of things that were kind of a springboard for me, and things that I think of, things that I brought back later in my career. So I definitely produced The Effective Gamma Rays later when I was the artistic director at the Gilbert Theater. And trying to think of anything else from school that I did. But, you know, those years in college, I'm sure anyone who went to a four-year school, or anyone certainly who went to an art school, are just emblazoned upon our brains as some of the most important times, and because it's so darn difficult to get in. Right. Some of the most important years of our artistic careers. And you know, I love just shows that I love. I had the good fortune to play Malin in Still Magnolias at Theater Raleigh a few years ago. Wow. Yeah, and I mean, that play is just, it's a perfect play. Not only is it a perfect play, but it's about Southern women. Right. And even though I was born in Ohio, I 100% grew up in the Carolinas. So I am a Southern gal. And so that was really a wonderful experience, being able to do that show. And, you know, I worked at the York Theater off Broadway in New York. I worked at the Mint Theater off Broadway in New York, both amazing companies to work for. I've been blessed to work with some really incredible artists and some really awesome directors all over the country. The Public Theater in Maine, Sierra Repertory Theater in California, lots of theater in Pittsburgh because I went to graduate school there at Point Park University for theater and pedagogy. So a lot of companies in Pittsburgh, including the Pittsburgh CLO, and I mentioned the Pittsburgh Public Theater, City Theater Pittsburgh, all great companies, incredible arts community. I'd say the Pittsburgh arts community is one of the most inspiring arts communities I've ever had the good fortune to be a part of, and still feel like it's one of my artistic homes.
So what's one of your favorite productions?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, I did Matilda.
Yeah.
At Virginia Stage recently and played Mrs. Wormwood, which is, Matilda's mom.
Right.
Matilda's mean mom, mean British mom. And that was a blast. And those kids were incredible. And I loved Tom Quaintance, who was the artistic director there, and a wonderful friend and just a wonderful director. And a very, a wonderful, he's one of those artistic directors that are able to bring a community together, and that's so important because it's not always true. So that was a lot of fun. I got to wear a ridiculous outfit. I got to dance. Not what I do that often. And sing, of course, and just work with some great people. It's a good memory. It's a good memory.
So do you have heroines, any women in the theater in your career that really are standouts for you and you would consider mentors?
Absolutely. Again, I would have to go back to the School of the Arts. A lot of my instructors there who actually are no longer there. Mary Irwin, who's a voice and speech teacher. She lives in London now. She's a huge voice and speech guru, teaches all over the world, was an incredible influence on me. Çiğdem Onat, who's a Turkish actress who was a huge inspiration to me during school. And then, of course, I've met some incredible women who run companies across the states. Lauren Kennedy over at Theater Raleigh, Mariah C. Kaminsky, who's now running the Pittsburgh Public Theater. There's some really great women who are taking these powerful positions in arts administration. It's really exciting to watch.
Excellent.
So yeah.
What are some of the key characteristics that have made you successful?
Wow. I love these questions. These are great.
I'm loving the conversation. And
I'm so good.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
Dig in a little bit. What are some of the key things, the key characteristics that have really created success for you? You talked about one earlier, I want to mention, and I caught, was continuous learning, being a continuous learner. So beyond that, what else was some of the characteristics that you had that have really made you successful?
I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I think that I have a drive that, I'm not, I have a drive that I feel like, well, I'm just going to do this. I don't know what the journey, as I get older, I find that the journey is really the thing, right? The journey is the thing, not the arrival.
Right.
What is the arrival? What is that? There is no arrival. Yeah, there is. Yeah, exactly. But there really isn't, we're always learning. You know, we're always learning and growing and opening and blossoming. And if we're not, I don't really see the point, you know. You know, if we're, I mean, but I know there are some people who are cool. I'm done. You know, I know it. I know the stuff. I'm done.
Uh-huh.
I guess that works for some people. For me, I just want, there's always something else. In fact, during this, during the lockdown, I decided to get my 200-hour yoga teacher training, which I wanted to do it my whole life. And I was like, well, let's do it. I'm sure years old. Let's do it. Why not? You know, there's always something else for me on my list that I want to learn to do, and some place that I want to go and learn. I mean, I would not have the time in this life to go and do all the things that I would like to do in terms of learning more about the theater, because there's so many opportunities out there. Can I always afford them? Do I always have time? Of course not. But, you know, I find that there's always a way to be learning more. And so yes, I think you also have to fill up that, you know, you kind of empty out your coffers and you have to refill them, or you've nothing to offer when you walk into the room to direct a show. You know, I don't want to come to any show and do the same old shtick that I did in the last show. Like, I want to come in with new life and new experiences and a new way of working. I've studied at a theater called Double Edge in Ashfield, Massachusetts, which they're devised theater. They do a lot of physical work. They live on a farm. It's amazing. But, you know, I learned so many things there that I've brought into the room as a director. And so I just try to, like, snatch as much as I can. You know, I didn't go to a directing program, as it were. So I kind of have been learning on the fly ever since I've been directing since I was 12. So, but I mean, I try to, you know, grab as much information as I can. And so I think that's important. And I also think that I bring to the table a real desire to help people, particularly if they kind of feel lost, or they're floundering, or they don't know where to start, or, you know, there were a lot of like superheroes for me in my life, a lot of helpers, but a lot of times I didn't feel like I had somebody to ask, you know. I didn't always have, these kids today have a lot of opportunities in terms of, like, you know, we were scratching around in the dirt doing community theater when I was coming up, but now there's all these programs and it's great. There's me. But I want to be that person that can help those people. I kind of always have my eye out for the person who's, I don't want to say the underdog, but like the person who's just not sure what to do, because sometimes those people have the most to offer. They just don't know where to start. And so I like try to keep my eye open for those people. And, you know, and even in the audition room, if somebody comes in and they're shaking in their boots and they can't even make notes because they're so nervous, you know, you have to be able to see the thing about them that is special to know whether or not you need to bring them back in and look at them again and give them another shot. You can't just dismiss someone because they're having a hard time or a bad day, you know? And there's so much pressure on people these days to come in with this perfect package, this perfect audition. And there's just not a lot of sincerity in that. There's not a lot of truth in that, you know, and people are covering up all their vulnerability with this like shiny, bright package that they're bringing in. Here's my song, you know, and I was never great at auditioning. I was terrible at it. Oh my gosh. And so I have a very soft spot in my heart for those people. And I try to keep an eye out for them, because you can't dismiss somebody just because they have a bad audition, and eventually people learn. There are some people who come out of the womb tapping and singing and ready to go, ready to book that job. There are other people, it takes them 20 years.
Right.
To figure it out.
Right. Exactly. So what would you want to say to other women that are out there who might be pondering this, right? They might be in those shoes. What would you want to say to them?
You mean pondering getting into the biz?
Yeah. What would you want to say to them? Whether they're 15, 12, 30, or 50, what would you want to say to any of them?
Well, you have to follow your dreams, because we don't know. I mean, some of us may think we do, but we don't know what's beyond this.
Right.
We don't know if we get to do this again.
Right.
I'm assuming this is it. And it's shorter than it, of course, when you're 15, you have your whole life before you.
Right.
But it's shorter than it feels at 15. But even at 40, it's longer than it feels. There's always time to pursue your dreams, always. And I promise you 100% that you're going to find the most joy in those moments, more joy in those moments of pursuing your dreams and being your authentic self than you will find in all the other moments of trying to pay those bills with this job that doesn't quite fit. And if you tell the universe or God or that thing that's bigger than you, this is what I want. I want to do this. Oprah said it best. She was like, there is nobody has a dream. Nobody is given a dream that cannot be fulfilled.
Yeah.
At some level. And even the pursuing of the dream is fulfilling. It's hard too. It's hard, especially when you're older and you're like, ugh. But I've met so many inspiring women who are like, yeah, I was a firefighter. I'm 40 now. I'm ready to act. And I've seen gals come right out of art school and quit a year later because it's hard. It's a hard industry, but you can find ways. I guess the ultimate answer is do the thing that makes you feel good. Do the thing that makes you feel good. Nice. And whatever the next step is, do the next thing that makes you feel good.
Nice. Nice.
Eat the cake.
I want to share with you something. In time, something that I'm observing and I'm hearing from you is your determination and your courage and your discipline and your humility and your trust. Oh my goodness, you're a trusting individual, and that's such a beautiful thing. People who are trusting are often highly successful. And in all of those things, you're very humble in all of this, and you're very beautiful in your openness, and you're full of life, and you're full of joy, and you're full of a little bit of fun and a little bit of spice. And so I'm seeing that in you as I'm watching you, but also in reading your bios and reading your stuff that's online, the things that you choose and pick to do and have done in your career, and that path that you've taken, that journey that you're still in and on. The mere fact that you said that you're a continuous learner, those are things that many people who are desiring to be a leader aspire to. And you do that so beautifully and so naturally. And that's why I asked you kind of, what is your she power? Because you've got a lot going on and it's so impactful. And theater does make a difference in people's lives. It does
Mhm.
give them the opportunity to dream, like you're saying. And
Really does. It really does. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I think I try to be a warm, open person. I think I am. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sure not all the time, but
it's life.
yeah, I mean that's life. But I try to be honest. I am trying to live an authentic life, and that means sometimes letting go of the things that in your life that are inauthentic, the relationships that aren't working. That's so important and hard, to let go sometimes of things and people and situations and places that you don't need to have in your energy field,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think if I had to have a she power, it would be hope. I have hope. I have hope, generally speaking. And
Beautiful.
it's never, yeah, I'm hopeful just in general. And I think that's where the joy lies. There's always something to find joy in. And I think, yeah.
Well, I have to say, Robin, this has been a fantastic interview. And for me, it's not even an interview. I felt like I was just having a conversation with you,
Oh,
getting
yeah.
to know you. It was beautiful. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day. And I know you're spending time with your dad. So thank you for doing that with us. And I know that we'll connect again here. This is
Absolutely. Anytime.
absolutely. And I just want to say, for anyone out there that's interested, She Has Something to Say is a platform for women just like Robin, who are making an impact because they're doing what they love. And this is a platform to share those stories and to honor and celebrate each other and to really continue to collectively open up those ideas and those stories and those narratives so that our youth and also those that we share this space with, that we inspire and we motivate and we help one another through this thing called life, right, in this journey. So thank you, Robin. I do appreciate you and your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.